I'm going to talk a bit more about shame today. I had a comment in one of my videos that basically was an observation that someone made. They said, we as a people have abandoned shame. And the result of that is the toxic culture that we observe around us. There is a lot of aggression, let's say, in society at the moment. There are a lot of very powerful, somewhat toxic messages being transmitted into whatever you might decide to be called culture. But I do disagree with the explanation that went into it. So I want to discuss that a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you, if you're interested, especially if you relate to this idea of shame, a way of integrating your personal shame for the greater good of society. Yeah. So let's talk first of all about this idea of we as a society have abandoned shame. We are a shameless society, and the consequence is all around us, okay? Now, if you were a fly on the wall in all of the conversations that I have with clients, you might come to a different conclusion, because many people suffer from shame. So I think this idea that we have abandoned shame is truly incorrect, okay? Shame is a very, very important emotion, like all emotions, okay? And shame kind of says to you, well, there's something wrong about me and I need to limit that. But it's a conclusion that has come from some events in your life that lead you to think, okay, there's parts of me that I need to kind of keep a lid on in order that I remain part of my clan, yeah? So it's a sort of an extreme version of embarrassment, but it has a use to keep you as part of your clan, as part of your society, so that we all are interdependent and looked after and so on and so forth. So there's nothing wrong with shame in itself. The problem comes when we go overboard in our response to shame, okay? And the thing is, so this comment said, well, look, we've abandoned shame, and the end result is everybody's just so toxic, everybody's so embarrassing, effectively, they're boorish, they've got no respect, all that kind of stuff. So for me, okay, if you consider that shame is a valid emotion, but that our response to it might maladapt, then you can look at lots of different ways in which someone might maladapt. So indeed, the official way might be to tone yourself down. So you learn that there's a part of you which is just ridiculous or exaggerated, and people laugh at that. And when you're a school kid and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do? So you limit that part inside of you. So one consequence could potentially be that you become introverted. Fair enough. However, if at these consequential times in your life you learn that showing off or that speaking up delivers, if there are experiences that you have in your life that say, look, when I was in pain and I did X, Y, Z and it worked, it benefited me, then you might have an entirely different approach, compensating approach, symptom of shame, which might be to scream and shout even louder. It might be to show off. It might be to distract attention from the so-called negative parts of yourself by shining a light on anything but that, okay? People pleasing, you can look at from two perspectives. It might become an insipid kind of way of fitting in with other people, but it might become a desperate search for approval seeking by showing off. So effectively, okay, you may introvert as a result of shame, but you may also extrovert. You may actually go too far constantly because at a certain time in the past, it worked, it delivered results, yeah? So that's what I want to talk about. If you are one of these people who somehow, you're not quite sure why, but you just kind of fall off on autopilot showing off. So if you find that is going overboard, if sometimes your verbal diarrhea is just getting carried away and it's like, what am I doing? Or you find yourself desperately trying to show off at inappropriate moments. Maybe you're trying to impress the opposite sex, or the same sex. If there is a message at the back of your mind that kind of goes, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on is that there is an imbalance, an emotional imbalance. So there is a pain over here, and there are a multitude ways to fix that. But one of them is to build a different energetic source over here. Yeah. So you end up in a balance which works, but which is energetically exhausting, because you are kind of devoting a great deal of attention over to this side and making sure that that stays hidden, make sure that that stays controlled. But it leaks, it kind of seeps out on the other side into this over-enthusiastic bravado, especially men. This happens a lot with men. If you relate to that, okay, if there is a part of you which is a bit of a peacock, let's do something hypnotic as a way to kind of accept what you are, to stop struggling against it, to own it, to sit with it, and then to find some better ways to channel that energy. Because I promise you, all of these parts of us that we think are shameful are actually simultaneously supremely powerful, supremely useful. They are probably the most beautiful parts of you, because this vulnerability is your truth, and it's created all of the expression of what you are that comes after that. And there is a tremendous beauty in that. So I wish people wouldn't struggle against their shame. I wish they would listen to it, own it, give it a hug. Yeah. Okay, so we'll do a little beautiful process. Yeah. So ask yourself before we begin: would I like, let's say, 10 minutes to sit with myself, to be kind to myself, to look after myself, to maybe learn something about myself, to accept myself, to give myself all of the love that I truly wish I could just simply hold inside of myself, so that I can become a radiant glow of energy which I can then give back to the world. Yeah, something like that. Or would I like to go into a beautiful state of self-absorption in order that I can understand myself better? I can come to terms with the pain. Maybe there's a gash inside your heart that needs healing, that needs accepting. And would I like to take the time to sit with that, to own that, and then to come up with some better ways of responding to it, yeah, rather than the current symptom. Hopefully some of that makes sense to you. Standard health warning applies. Please only listen to my words, only watch my video when it is safe and appropriate to do so. Okay, maybe you want to focus on the I don't know if you can hear the sound of the gurgling stream when I do these videos, because the microphone can be kind of clever. But if you can hear the sound of the gurgling water, maybe you want to focus on the gurgling water and imagine your thoughts as a leaf floating along on the stream. And maybe from time to time those thoughts, they get caught up in a little eddy, and there's a little whirlpool of water, and they get twisted and stuck. And you can imagine those thoughts, that leaf just kind of leaving the eddy and floating on down the stream. Maybe there's something beautiful that you can do with that. So if you're ready, if you're sat down, make sure that your feet are sat flat on the floor. Keep your hands apart, and maybe rest them on your legs. If you're laying down, same thing, kind of separate your arms, separate your legs. Take in a good deep breath and hold that breath. And then let that breath go. Knowing that you're just here to discover a little thing about yourself, knowing that I don't know you, and so some of the words that I say will land and others might not. Taking a second good deep breath. Hold breath. And let that breath go. Knowing that this isn't the same as a proper hypnotherapy session, obviously, because there's very little interaction, that I am giving my gift to the universal you. But that you'll engage with it to the best of your ability with an open-minded curiosity. Third deep breath in. Hold that breath. And then as you let that breath go, just allow your eyes to close. Focus on the eyelids. Allow those eyelids to become deeply, deeply relaxed. Maybe focus on little muscles around your eyes. Allow those also to become deeply, deeply relaxed. Relax your cheekbones. Relax your jaw. If there's any tension in your neck, just allow your neck to loosen. You can move. Loosen your shoulders if that's required. But focus on those eyelids. Allow those eyelids to become so heavy that they just won't work. Relax the muscles around your eyes. Those tiny little muscles around those eyes. Relax them completely. And when you're sure that those eyelids won't work, give them a test. Actually give them a test. Prove to yourself with the power of your imagination that extraordinarily those eyelids won't work. And then when you've convinced yourself, you can stop testing. Hypnosis is not a state of eyelids. You can send a wave of relaxation from those eyelids up to the top of your head, down to the tips of your toes. And maybe as you do so, you can imagine with every breath that you exhale, breathing out any remaining tension in your body, almost as if you could breathe it out through the soles of your feet. Focus on your inner experience. You sat there, there's nothing to do here. There's nothing to prove here. This is a moment just for you to look after you. So you're just going to set aside 10 minutes to experience what you experienced, to learn something beautiful. Maybe give yourself a well-deserved hug, perhaps. Or a non-deserved hug. A hug just because of your existence on this earth. And so with your eyes closed now, what I'd like you to do is to put your hands out in front of you. Put them, you don't need to open your eyes to check it, but put your hands out in front of you about sort of 10 centimeters apart, with the palms facing each other. Almost as if you were holding a football in between those hands. And I'd like you to imagine that in between those hands, so attached to each palm, is a very powerful magnet. And as you focus your attention on the center of those palms of each hand and that powerful magnet, maybe you can imagine those magnets starting to draw together. Maybe you can imagine them pulling together. Now, some people, when I talk about magnets, they might feel that the magnets are actually repelling each other, that they're pushing them apart. And if so, that's okay too. But I want you to imagine, really focus on that sensation, get a sense of those magnets and whether they repel or whether they pull together, whatever you feel like is good for you. For me, it's drawing together. And so I'd like you to imagine with your eyes closed that those hands are being drawn together by those powerful magnets that are pulling together. And just focus intently on that experience. And I don't know how long that might take, but that's probably, if that's the case, there's going to be a moment of anticipation when you know those hands are going to touch. And because you know it's going to happen, but you don't know when, there'll still be a moment of surprise when that occurs, a little jump. Whenever that occurs for you, I'd like you to focus this feeling of shame or this feeling of hurt, this feeling of the gash in your heart, maybe, in your left hand. And I want you to imagine that you're placing all of that feeling of misplaced shame or very powerful embarrassment, or there's something wrong about me and I need to keep a lid on it, or there is a pain inside of me, a wound that needs healing. And I want you to place all of that in that left hand. And as you do so, I want you to allow that left hand to just ever so gradually start to drift down towards your lap, or down towards the table, or down towards the bed. Only as quickly as you review the reasons in your mind for that feeling. Reviewing perhaps the history, the stories that are attached to it, the experiences that are attached to it, with an open-minded, open-hearted acceptance, but really reviewing the reason why you think and feel the way you do. And as you allow that left hand to drift down, just go through all of that reasoning, all of that thought, and all of that felt process. I'm just going to go quiet to allow you to do that for a minute or so. And as you do so, I would imagine there's probably a moment inside where you kind of feel satisfied with that. You kind of feel settled in that understanding. And maybe that's the moment when the left hand touches your leg, or touches the table, or touches the arm of the chair, touches the bed. Maybe it's before. Whenever you're ready, though, just allow that left hand to relax, to rest. And then I want you to focus your attention on your right hand. Now, maybe your right hand is still where it was. It's still there in front of you as if you were holding that energetic ball, or maybe it's down. But I want you to focus your attention on that right hand. And I want you to imagine in that right hand are all of your creative resources. Imagine that there was a magician inside of you. Imagine there were experiences from other part of your life that you could apply to this thought process. Imagine there's elements of your experience that you are deeply, deeply inventive about, deeply proud of, deeply strong. And I want you to imagine in that right hand is all of that potential, all of that experience, all of that knowledge, all of that kindness, all of that caring. And I want you, whilst you have your eyes closed, whilst that right hand is also now starting to drift downwards, to consider all the new potential ways that you could look at that wound, at that shame, at that story in your left hand. New ways, better ways, more constructive ways, more helpful ways, more inventive ways, more creative ways. And as that right hand starts to drift down, I'm just going to go quiet and allow you a moment to review all the potential that for whatever reason hasn't been looked after. And again, there's probably a moment in that review, maybe it's the moment where your right hand touches the table or the chair or your lap or the bed. Maybe it's before, where you kind of feel things settle, you kind of feel satisfied that you've done that. And if you need to, you know that you can come back to this at any moment in the future and revisit the whole experience. But when you have that sensation, what I'd like you to do then is very, very simple. That's to ever so slowly, in your own time, only as quickly as feels right to you, bring those two hands together. Allow it to occur almost as if you weren't doing it yourself, that it was almost involuntary, that it was just occurring. Maybe you can imagine those two magnets drawing together. But with every breath, as they become closer and closer together, feeling that sense of inner kindness, inner love, inner self-acceptance, perhaps inner self-esteem. And as they become closer, you can imagine the power, the self-control perhaps, self-reverence growing. Your personal power is growing your personal acceptance is growing. And again, there'll be a moment when those hands touch, when you can notice what you notice. Really, really press the palms together in kindness. Maybe say a little thank you to yourself. And notice what you notice. If you notice strange feelings, that's okay. Sit with the feelings. If you don't, that's okay too. Sometimes one of the responses of shame is no feeling at all. And so all feelings are correct. And perhaps you can notice a feeling of warmth in between your hands, traveling up your arms, traveling up towards your heart. Maybe you can find a special chamber in your heart where whatever learnings, whatever understandings, whatever kindness is required, you can place in that chamber in your heart and keep it there and look after it like a little jewel, because it is a beautiful jewel that nobody else in the entire world can replicate. It's absolutely unique to you, and there's a beauty in that. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes, feeling wonderful, feeling very serene, perhaps quite still, maybe. Might be a sense of revelation, a sense of surprise, maybe a deep-seated, settled, anchored feeling. That's how it feels to me. Shame, like everything else, is a story. It's a story running inside our mind. But it has such power, such electricity attached to it, because shameful things tend to be quite taboo, and so we don't have much opportunity to express them to other people. But we are what we are. People make mistakes. It doesn't mean that intrinsically we're bad. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching. I hope that's of benefit. I hope that's of interest. I hope you've created a sense of kindness inside of yourself as a result. And whether you like it or not, actually, if you wish, if you have an observation, then write it down below, because I love to get responses. It's part of the joy of making these videos. All right, thanks for watching. Take care, and until next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to the world, and let's make the world a better place, a less toxic culture, perhaps by owning what it is that we feel inside of ourselves and honoring that. Yeah. Funny thing about shame, once you can do this with yourself, you can start to do it with other people, and so you can tolerate indifference, other opinions, absurdities, even anger, even frustrations, even sadness. You can tolerate it all in others, because it's kind of like, well, I own these things as well. Everybody owns all if they listen. All right, I'll shut up. Take care. Bye.